Ranson, and I am a business coach, executive coach. I have my own business. So I'm an entrepreneur. Some people call me a solopreneur because it's only me. And I am here to talk to you today about my first career that was in the radio industry. And so if we go way, way back into the mid-70s, I don't know why I remember the date, but March the 8th, 1974 was when I started in the radio business. And at that time, I was an accounts payable clerk, and my sister was a secretary at a local Dallas radio station. And she had decided to leave and called one day to ask me if I'd like to apply for the job. Well, an accounts payable clerk or the radio business, the radio industry sounded a lot more fun. So I did apply and did get the job and ended up having about a 30-year career in the radio industry. But I want to kind of set the scene for what was going on in 1974, because we're here talking about women's history. Well, it wasn't until 1972 that Title IX, which was breaking legislation that gave women a lot of rights that they had not previously had. In particular, Title IX gave equal access to sports with women. And even though I never played sports, that kind of came after I got out of school. I did benefit in other ways, and certainly our society has benefited. It was also in 72 when the Equal Rights Amendment was passed by the House and the Senate. And because it was an amendment to the Constitution, it had to go through a ratification process of all the states. Don't want to get all my time spent on that, but unfortunately, the Equal Rights Amendment still has not passed because it has not been ratified by enough states. So in 1974, there were not a lot of women in professional positions. Now, I started out as a secretary. I know people want to call that an administrative assistant today. I had no problem with being a secretary. My mother had been a professional secretary for many years, and so I was quite fine and quite proud of the position that I had. But as I began to look around and as I, spent more time in that job, I began to see other opportunities. And sales looked really interesting to me. Of course, my only vision of that was I knew they were getting bigger paychecks and they would come and go all day long from the office. And so I thought this sounded like a pretty cool opportunity. So I did ultimately go into sales. And at that point, there were, I don't know, maybe 30% of sellers in the radio industry were women. But there were very few women who were in management. There was one particular woman that I remember, Irene Runnels. I actually went to high school with her son. She was the first woman general manager of a radio station in Dallas. And she really did open so many doors for all of the rest of us. And so as I got into my radio career, and then I began to aspire to management. And fortunately, during my tenure in the radio industry over that 30 years, many more doors opened for women. And I think it was because women were really good at it. Now, sales and management is dominated by women. And I think it's largely because women build good relationships. It's just something that we are innately better at. Doesn't mean that men can't build good relationships. I just think it takes them a little bit harder, perhaps maybe a little bit more work. So I did end up in management in 1981. I became the director of sales for the Texas State Networks. And that was an exciting opportunity for me. I had not been a person who set a lot of goals, like specific goals that I wanted to attain a certain income. Well, I do remember when I started in the radio business, I don't know what I made, $700 or something. And I remember thinking, oh, if I can ever make $1,000 a month, I'd be the richest girl in town. And of course, $1,000 won't get us very far today. So I did go into management in 1981 and continued to grow my career in a variety of different areas within the radio industry. Got into new business development, got into marketing, strategy, began to work with brand managers at major, like General Motors was one of my biggest clients. And so I worked with Pontiac and Oldsmobile. Now that I'm thinking about it, both of them are out of business now. Hopefully my work with them had no impact on that. But I think what I noticed the most was how women flourished in the radio industry. And we were kind of more at the forefront in the radio industry for women being in a successful position. And so I think that allowed, a lot more doors to open, because even into the 90s, into the 2000s, women in other industries were lagging a little bit behind the radio industry. Now, I doubt that there's much difference at all. I left the radio business in 2006, and that's when I chose to become an entrepreneur and go out on my own. So what were some of the experiences and lessons that I learned during those early days as a woman in business? And I think that one of the things is, particularly as we got introduced to the Me Too movement of the last 5 or 10 years, it was a different world in those days. There was not a lot of attention paid to harassment and those sorts of things. And I never experienced anything like that, but I was aware that the rules were a lot looser in those days than what we have today. Respect towards women and really towards any minority group was not as great as what we can enjoy today. So if I were going to leave you with a little tip of wisdom, I would say, take a chance. Stay open to possibilities. When I went to apply for that secretarial position, it was not in my mind that that would end up being a career where I would enjoy great success, built many friendships, many of which I still have today. And so stay open for new opportunities and seek out different possibilities. When a door opens, walk through it. You can always walk back out. So that'd be the tip that I'd want to leave you today. And I wish you the greatest success in whatever choices you make in your life. Thanks.